Hi everybody, John Craig here with Performance Plus Tennis. Welcome to today's video. We're going to address a topic on the serve that I've literally never talked about before at all here on the channel, and that's about the role of the hips on the serve. So what role do the hips really play on the serve? How do we activate the hips? What do we think about? What don't we think about? We're going to get into that and even more in today's lesson. A lot of coaches talk extensively about the hips on the serve, but for me, it's more about getting into the proper alignment. So for example, what I want my hips to do is just follow what my body position is so that I'm in an alignment. You see a lot of servers, a lot of coaches that'll have you get in a trophy position and I want you to throw the hips forward. But I don't think this is a good position to be in because this is not a natural position for me to generate power from. So most servers are not really trying to throw that hip forward like this so much anymore. For me, I don't think about that at all. What I want you to think about is getting into a good stretch position with your left arm and then getting the legs to flex and have what happens here, you'll see, is that my right knee is bent a little bit more than my left knee. And that's really a simple reason, is because my right hip, without me even thinking about it, is going to be slightly lower than my left hip because I've got a little bit of a tilt going on here. So I get a little more flex in my right leg. So my hips just move where my body feels most comfortable to be in alignment. I don't want my hips to be forward. I certainly don't want my hips to be backwards. I don't want my hips to be outward, and I don't want them to be overly inward. So I wouldn't overly think about it. I would just allow your hips to follow your body position. And the key positions I want you to be aware of is the flex in your legs, and that you have the back heel up slightly, because that's going to compensate for the right hip being a little bit lower, and the trophy position balance being in this area here. And if you're in alignment, certainly you're going to have more power and more control and less chance of getting an injury. So be careful about the hips. You don't really need to think that much about them. Just make sure that you have a proper alignment from the view you're looking here, and also from the back view as well. Make sure that you've got a good alignment, and that's going to enable you to generate power, serve as long as you want to, hit hundreds and thousands of serves for a long, long time, and avoid injuries. You don't need to really be thinking about using your hips. And the hips don't create the power, okay? The hips don't go anywhere unless I'm doing this, and that's not going to give me any power. The power is really going to come from where my legs are. So you really use your legs more to get your torso to move, and your hips and your torso will move as a unit. So just be careful about that. Don't think so much about your hips. Think about the other key elements that allow your hips to naturally fall into an alignment where they can be useful, but not really interfering and reduce the chance of injury. And as a thought about how the role of the hips is really secondary, just look at Andy Murray, who's gone through a full hip replacement, has a metal hip now, but his serve is no different now than it was before. And the source of his hip problem wasn't his serve, okay? It was actually in his ground strokes and his movement around the court. But the way he serves is no different, because really the hips don't play that major of a role in actually generating the power and the movement on the serve. It really comes from the legs, and it comes from the upper body. Particularly for me, if you've watched me, you know how much I emphasize the role of the non-dominant hand, the angle it takes, and how it gets you in position to get your body and your core involved. But again, I don't think about my hips. They just move in alignment with my body, and I think that's really what you should be trying to do on your serve as well. And another example that I want you to try to avoid, and you certainly don't need to think about it, is really driving upward with your hips, okay? There are coaches out there that want you to really load strongly into the back leg and really try to get that right hip to come really pushing up hard. Again, I think that's a natural consequence of being in the ideal balanced trophy position, using your legs properly, and then as you pull away with the left hand and fly up to get the ball, obviously the right hip is going to get higher than the left hip. It's going to be lower in the balanced trophy position because of the position you get into, and then it's naturally going to rise and get above the left hip as you fly up to get the ball. But again, I never think about my hips. I just think about being comfortable in an alignment, and that's what you should do as well. Thanks so much for watching today's lesson. I hope this was helpful for you as you work on developing your serve. And again, I would emphasize leg drive, balance, positioning, and the role of the non-dominant hand as key features of your serve, and let your hips just be where they are naturally comfortable. I would also pay attention to misalignment, so be careful about that. But if you're in alignment and you're comfortable, work on those other key parts and you'll optimize your serve performance. Thanks so much for watching the lesson. Please give us a like, leave your comments down below, subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already, and finally, share this video with a friend. Thanks so much for watching today's video, and we'll see you in the next lesson.